knows how you come across somebody once in a while you shouldn't have messed with? That's me.
I am not an African American.
You're Oreo cookie, white in the inside and black on the outside.
I don't have an afro, I have an Amerifro.
Talking that idiotic stuff you talk about, I will slap you.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Black as the ace of spades, but 100% American.
Heard around the world by everybody and their mama. The Jesse Lee Peterson Radio Show.
Uniting the races with truth instead of dividing them with lies. We're also rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. I am Jesse Lee Peterson. Thank you so much for being with me. Akeela Hayder Green is with me, author of If I Live to Tell. Her new book, we want to get into her new book about the trials she has undergone being raised by troubled parents, living an oppressed life as a woman in Iraq during her teenage years, and how she became a Christian. Very, very interesting. We're going to tell you how to get the book as well. All right, let's go to the phone here. Akilah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Akilah, very interesting book. You grew up in England, and your parents, according to your book, your mother and father, who were Iraqi by birth, lived there. Tell the folks a little bit of background about you and how you ended up in Iraq.
Well, my mother was actually British, and my father was the one that was Iraqi.
Okay.
And I was raised in England practically just as, an English child.
And in your book, you talk about how your relationship with your father, you were trying to, I believe, get his love and feel loved by him. And at some point, he asked you to go to Iraq to learn more about that side of life or his people.
Yeah, it was basically I hadn't been raised or taught anything about the culture. And about 14 years old, I was, getting to the point where I was trying to find out about my heritage, a little bit about my background. And it was supposed to be a short stint, vacation, for where I could learn a little bit more, meet all the family, and it ended up being a little over 2 years.
How old were you when you first went over to Iraq?
14 coming into being 15.
And so you thought your father was just sending you there to get to know your family members on his side of the family. How long did you think you were going to stay there?
I was told 2 weeks.
Really? And so you ended up staying 2 years, is that right?
A little over 2 years, yeah, in total.
So when you realized, after 2 weeks went by, you realized that, hey, 2 weeks are up and I'm not going back home. How did you deal with that? I mean, what did you think about that?
Well, at first, being as young as I was, it was, it was fun. It was all, like I said in the book, it's like dress up, meeting different people, things like that. So it didn't really hit me until later on, maybe a couple of months into it, when I hadn't heard anything from him. And then it started to become, oh, maybe I'm not leaving when I thought I was. And then, several months after that, and then going into an arranged marriage, then I really knew I wasn't coming back anytime soon.
And you write about the arranged marriage. But let me ask this first. So when you realized that you were not, after a month or so, you realized, hey, I'm not going back home here. Did you try to contact your father to find out why I'm not coming home?
Well, no, because there was no way of contacting anyone. And he hadn't. I had to wait for him to contact me.
Wow.
It was at the time that we had Saddam and reign over there. So it was hard to contact anyone. You couldn't get word out to anyone, especially internationally. So I had to wait for him to contact me, and it seemed as though he wasn't in any hurry.
That's amazing. Let me ask in short, were you close to your father and mother? Did you guys have a good relationship?
Growing up, I had a very strange relationship with both of my parents. I would say more so I was more of a daddy's girl growing up.
Okay.
So not really. I mean, they were both very cold and not very nurturing, I should say,
Right.
as parents. So
I read in your book, when you asked your father, when were you coming back, he said, as long as it would take for you to become a good Iraqi woman. What did he mean by that?
I think he, wanted me to be, the typical subservient, submissive female of, cook, clean, do as you're told, walk behind the man, those types of things.
Oh, I see. And while there, you ended up having sex, I guess. Not I guess. I read that you had sex with your uncle there. He molested you or raped you or something while you were there?
Yeah, I was sexually abused while I was there.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was 15 maybe, something like that.
And
between 15 and 16.
When this happened to you, right?
Yes.
And when they found out, your other family members found out that you had had sex, they forced you to get married. They arranged a marriage for you.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say I had sex with them. It was forced.
Right.
And yes, they did. They did practically figure out a way out of it because there's such thing as honor killings in the Middle East. The female is to be a virgin until she's married, or if it's found out that she's not, whether it's consensual or not, then she has to be killed to save the family's honor.
Wow. And so
they were trying to cover that up, and the only way they could cover it up was marry me off and re-virginize me first.
And how did they re-virginize you? Let me answer that when I come back. Let me take a quick break. We'll pick up on the other side of the break. 888-77-53773. Back in a moment. Akeela Green is my guest. Her book, If I Live to Tell, she writes about her trials. About the trials she had to undergo while being raised by troubled parents. Very, very interesting book. And I know that in this interview, I won't be able to do justice to it, even though I'll try, because she really had a rough life and managed to overcome. Her father sent her over to Iraq under the pretense, I guess, to learn about his family. She was 14 or so when she went there, and supposedly for 2 weeks, and ended up staying longer for almost 2 years, or 2 years or longer, and was forced to get married because she was raped by a family member there. And over in Iraq, if you are not a virgin, you will be killed, what they call an honor killing. And so her family member ended up forcing her to get married to someone else because of that. So it's a mess. But she writes about how she was able to overcome that. She became a Christian. We'll tell you about that in a minute. Akilah, I'm sorry to hear about your tough times. It's amazing to me what human beings do to each other. It is mind-blowing to me. You said that you had to be re-virginized. What is that?
It's a clinical procedure that they basically sew from back to front just like you would, say you split your leg open or something like that. You got stitches. It's basically stitched from the back to the front.
That's awful.
Inside.
Inside.
Mm-hmm.
And this is to deceive the potential husband?
Absolutely. You're supposed to, on your wedding night in this culture, bleed onto a white cloth to show your family's honor as being a virgin. And it is shown in the ceremony the next day to everybody in the immediate family on both sides. It's a celebration of sorts. And if it's, of course, if you don't bleed, you're killed. If you do, you're highly respected and everything's wonderful. It is. It's so you bleed onto a cloth, and basically what happens is just like you would if you would sew anything else up, if you rip the stitches out, you're going to bleed.
Wow.
Or hope to, anyway.
Was this a painful process? Did they put you to sleep for it, or?
No, you're talking about almost a third world country. So, no, I wasn't put to sleep. There was no anesthesia. It was sewn up and ripped out in the space of 24 hours or so. So, no, yes, it is very painful.
How does one survive that kind of pain? I can't imagine that.
Well, up until that point, there'd been so many incidents, of things that it tends to make somebody numb to not just physical pain, but emotional pain. So you kind of go to this other place, so to speak, where your mind just doesn't accept or absorb what's going on. You're just in a fog almost, and it was the only survival mechanism I had to work with.
Wow. I jumped a little ahead of myself. I thought in your writings you wrote, just very good insight, for the lack of a better word, about your relationship with your parents and during your childhood. Tell the folks about your relationship in short, because I want them to read the book as well. First, let's talk about your mother and your relationship, and then your father. What was your relationship with your mother as a child?
As a child, my mother was a very, she was neurotic, so to speak, a very jealous, insecure person, and very jealous over anything to do with my father. And being as close as I was to my dad, I was kind of the target of a lot of her anger. So I wasn't very close to her growing up at all.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And during this time, did you have anyone to talk to or anyone to help you deal with your mother in the way that she was treating you?
Not really, but I have my aunt growing up seemed to always be there for me. So, I still had something, to keep me going as a child. She always tried to take the mother figure and the lead role for somebody to look up to as a young girl.
When you tried to talk, if you tried to talk to your mother about it, what was her response in the way that she was treating you?
Well, I wouldn't really speak to her about it, because as a child, you don't know what's right and wrong. You just know what you're taught.
Oh, I see.
And so for me, I didn't think, that it was. I thought it was normal, and I thought it was something wrong with me. And then, maybe I was, a bad kid or something like that. And then the older I got, the more I started to realize that it wasn't an issue within me, it was within her.
That's amazing. And your father, you talk about the longing for your father's affection, but when you got it...
Most little girls do, though, don't they?
They do. I think all of them do, really. There's a longing.
All little girls look to their dads for, for that comfort and protection and support.
Even as adults, if they don't get it, if they haven't gotten it from their father, they still long for that. And if they can't get it from their father, they still kind of look for it from other men, that kind of fulfillment.
Absolutely.
But the men don't understand what the woman needs. They tend to take advantage of that
right.
for their own personal gain. But you talk about this longing for your father, this affection that you wanted from him But when you got it before your first trip to Iraq, you didn't really trust that affection. What did you mean by that?
Well, it's like I said in the book. You want something for so long, and then when you finally get it, it's like, okay, really? That's it. That's it. It was. You're right. I didn't trust it because it was something that had never been there before, and it was almost a letdown. If that makes sense.
Wow. And so, did you talk to him about this longing that you had, or how did you finally get it from him, and then realize that all to it?
I finally got it because I was doing something he wanted me to do. I was pleasing him. I was doing something that was expected of me and complying almost. Yeah. So that was the reason why I didn't trust it, because had I had not done that, then I probably wouldn't have received it.
I totally understand that. What were you, before you got this phony affection, because it doesn't sound like it was real, what did you expect affection to feel like from a father?
I really wouldn't have known, because it wasn't something that I was ever exposed to. So it was almost like I said, I built this big, wonderful picture of how it was going to be, and then when it was like, oh, really, that's it? Maybe I hadn't missed anything after all, because it was so fake.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Let me take a break. When I come back, I want to tell the folks how to get your book as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. 888-7753-773. Amazing story, folks. Back in a moment. Okay, folks, welcome back. Thank you for being with me. I am Jesse Lee Peterson, talking to a very interesting lady who's gone through some tough time, Akeela Hayder Green, author of If I Live to Tell, and the stuff she went through and how she became a Christian. We're going to get to that. 888-7753-773. Akilah, tell the folks how to get your book.
There's a number of ways you can get it. PatriotDepot.com is one place. It's all available on Amazon.com, and it's also available in ebook form and also paperback.
All right. So here you are in Iraq. You end up being raped. They force you to marry after going through this surgery thing. And how was, in short, how was that first marriage?
It was almost like being abused again, because it's somebody you don't know. I'm barely 16 years old.
And how old was he?
I think 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there, late 20s.
Okay.
So it was different.
It was rough, huh?
I think at that point I'd learned how to shut down and just accept what came and roll with the punches. There was nothing else I could do, really.
And how long did that marriage last?
Long enough to get me back to the United Kingdom, and I think maybe a year.
Oh, okay.
In total.
So once you got back to the United Kingdom, you divorced this person, right? You just left him?
Yes, I did. I ran for the hills.
Good for you. And what happened at that point? Because I read you got married again.
I did. I remarried a little later to, like you had said earlier, where the female that has looked for, the female child that has looked for the father's affection for so long, they then turn to men to kind of fulfill that role.
Yeah.
Something that's lacking. So basically that's what I did. Found somebody much older that would fill the fatherly figure shoes.
And how did that go?
Not so well. But saying that, though, on a more positive note, I did get my firstborn child from that relationship, which is my son, who one of my closest best friends.
And so you ended up divorcing this guy, right? Because he really wasn't, according to you, wasn't a good guy.
Yeah, it turned out to be I was very deceived in that relationship, but I was also very young and naive. So
yeah. Let me ask, in short, were you a difficult wife because of what you had gone through and the anger and stuff you had? Did it make it extra hard on the marriage?
No, I think it made it easier. I was more accepting of things. I was more appreciative of the smaller things, of having a little more freedom, being able to, drive. The simple things that most people take for granted every day.
Yeah.
Walking somewhere or, just having my own choices.
Amazing. Tell us what surprised you most by living in Iraq. What were you most surprised by?
I don't think there's really one pinpoint thing. I think everything there, I wouldn't say surprising is the word, is shocking. Just the standard of living and the things that, they endure as women. Also, just everything. It's just, you walk around with your eyes like saucers all the time. Because if you come from something that's different and you know there is something different,
yes,
you've seen both sides almost. It's like looking over a fence. It was strange.
And you were there during the time that Saddam Hussein was in control there, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Blockades, no food. It was almost famine. It was a very, very, very difficult way of living.
It was apparent to you that the people pretended to love Saddam when he would drive through the street or he would show up on TV or whatever, but in reality they hated him.
Yes, I mean they all lived in very much fear of this, dictator almost. It was like Nazis. It was pretty bad. It was like having Hitler in reign. So they pretended out of fear that they loved and just worshiped this man because they were forced to.
Would they say how they truly felt behind closed doors?
Not really, because it was almost like they were afraid of the walls even. One guy, I wrote about it in my book, had said something in joke.
Hold that thought for me. May I hold you over for one more segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me take a quick break. 888-77-JESSE. Back in a moment. Okay, folks, my final segment with my guest, Akilah. She was kind enough to stay for another segment here because I want to get to how she became a Christian. Akilah, finish that about the folks in Iraq. They were so afraid of Saddam Hussein that they were even afraid to speak about him, against him, behind closed doors. And you gave an example in your book about a man who did such thing. Tell us about that.
Yes, they have cross lines. There's no actual telephone line. So what people would do for, I guess, entertainment was like pick up the phone and there'd be like 100 people all at once trying to talk to each other and you could hear them all. And I guess he had said something about Saddam as a joke, very light joke. And the next day, he was shot in the head in the street and they put a big wrecking ball through his house.
Wow.
And that was just on the telephone. So, yeah, they were afraid. They were afraid to even look the wrong way. Or, there were so many people there under this man's, rule and reign that were looking out for him all the time.
And they would, so by doing something like that, killing this guy in the streets like that and destroying his home.
It's proving a point.
Yeah,
it's proving a point.
It put more fear in other people.
Absolutely, it's proving a point, and then you get all the moms telling the kids, make sure you don't say a word, don't say this and don't say that, and they would breed into their children, sing songs about Saddam is great, Saddam is this, to make sure the child didn't repeat or go ahead and say anything that they may have said under their breath.
Wow. How do you feel about freedom now in your life? What does freedom mean to you?
It is the greatest thing in the world, just to know that I can go where I want, do what I want, decide, know, for myself, what's right, what's wrong, just wear what I want, express myself in whichever way I feel is, you know, the right way. Just the smallest things.
Yeah, I can imagine. I love freedom. I was at, we put on a rally this weekend supporting the Second Amendment and Freedom Rally, and I realized I love freedom, and freedom is worth fighting for. And I don't understand people who are unwilling to fight for freedom.
When you're suppressed so long and you don't know the difference, like I said, you don't know if freedom is available. You don't know, you know, it's what are you fighting for? Something you're not even aware of, something you've never tasted.
And I guess that would apply to people who are born in a free country. They don't know what it feels like to be suppressed or depressed like that. Yeah. And so when they're losing freedom, they don't realize what they're losing until they've lost it, and now they don't have that freedom. It's too bad. It takes that for some people to learn.
It's amazing. Sometimes you don't know what you've got till it's gone.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, you know, sometimes I do look at people and, you know, in a judgmental eye, not meaning to, but I sit there and I think, you know, you don't realize how good you have it. You don't know what it's like to not have something that you take for granted.
Yeah.
Something that you just expect is a daily thing. That what would you do if it was taken away?
Yep.
And I don't think most people would know how to handle that.
I see it all the time around here. It's amazing, too. You became a Christian. Tell us about that.
I did. It speaks about it throughout my book that
Yes.
I wasn't raised into knowing God or, you know, seeking God or just it wasn't something that was given to me or taught to me or shown to me in any way whatsoever. It was something that I feel like was there throughout my whole life in so many instances you can see throughout my book, though I didn't know what or why. I come to the conclusion at the end and started to see all the times during that time, even in the toughest times, that he was there.
Yeah. You write in your book that trials shape you and mold you into the person you need to be to fulfill your unique purpose. And when I read that, it really touched my heart because I can see in my own personal life what trials have done to me to make me stronger, more insightful. It built my faith. And it is God is with you. It confirms that God is with you if you deal with those things in the proper way.
It is, you know, and I spoke about it in the beginning of my book also. The last thing I want is for somebody to say, oh, this lady's had a terrible life, be as that may. That's not what the book is about. And it does absolutely everything you just said to the T. If so many people, and I am guilty of it as well. Why me? You know, what did I do? God, why you let me go through this? It's all your fault. It's just the total pity party on your own behalf. But when you come out of it on the other side, if you realize that, like you just said, that it shapes you and it does mold you and it does make you appreciate all of the things that you took for granted and all of just everything, it you've got to be thankful for. And everything in that book, as crazy as this may sound, I'm thankful for every last bit of it because it's made me the person I am. I
totally understand. It feels like on the other side of the trials and tribulation, you've been made to be refreshed. You get the sense of being a new person. And I love it when you said, I went through all of this so I could live to tell the world that God is good all the time, even in our suffering. And I just say amen to that. I don't even think there are words to express what you mean by that. People really have to go through it to see it for themselves.
Absolutely. You really do. I hope everybody reads this book and takes something away from it in some shape or form. I can't see how you can read it and not take something away from it. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm really serious about that. I mean, I don't know how they can read it. The book is If I Live to Tell by Akeela Hayder Green, Green. And tell them once again before we run out of time how they can get it. They can get it from PatriotDepot.com. It's available on Amazon.com. and it's also available in ebook form.
You know, all I got to say, you have an amazing life, an amazing story to tell, and I hope that people get this book, because if they are looking for God, you are a good witness to what God is about and how to get to him. Thank you for this interview, and thank you for the book.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day now.
You too.
Back in a moment.
Ain't no woman like the one I've got. Need to ask, he's a smooth operator. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. Smooth operator. Coast to coast, LA to Chicago, Western.
An amazing story about Akilah. That was something else. I have to tell you, and I know this is my own personal life. As of this day, I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, because for me, there is no tomorrow, just now. God is here and now. And the stuff that I've endured, the things that I've endured in the proper way, meaning that I have not resented having to endure things or resent the people who tried to bring these situations upon me. You come through it. You really do come through it. And once you're done with it, it's like amazing. It's like a cool drink of water on a hot summer day. You feel refreshed, and you look at it, you're like, wow. And you feel like a brand new person. And so it seems as though you're not gone through anything. It is mind-blowing. It's spiritual. And one thing I realized about God, many things I realized, but one thing is that he's never going to give you any more than you can handle. But the key is knowing how to handle the situation. Realizing that of yourself you can do nothing. And if you don't resent anything, anybody, any situation, yourself, and if you don't have an opinion about what you're going through, you'll be fine. And meaning opinion, don't think of it as good or bad. It is what it is. Attitude. It will blow your Amerifro off. And if you have an afro, it'll blow it off and give you an Amerifro. Isn't that something? Yes, Jesse, that's something else. But you got to learn, and when you come through it, when it's done, you have more compassion for others. You see people in a totally different light. You understand why they do the things they do. They can't help themselves. You know it's not personal. But that also frees you up even more. So it's an amazing thing. It's called love. Love. L-O-V-E. We're going to have some pictures and things up later, if we don't already have them there on my website, bondaction.org and bondinfo.org, of the Second Amendment and Freedom Rally from this past Saturday. It was an amazing thing, folks. And I'm not making it up. You're going to see, when you see the pictures, you're going to see, wow. But again, thank everybody and their mama for showing up. And thank you for tuning in and calling in today. Think about what you've heard. Let your anger go. Don't judge yourself or have an opinion of yourself or anyone else. Just live. I'll be back tomorrow if God is willing and the creek don't rise. Have a good day.
This has been the Jesse Lee Peterson Show, produced by Bond, Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. Views expressed by guests and callers on today's program may not necessarily represent the views of this station. For more information, call 1-800-411-BOND. That's 1-800-411-BOND. Or visit our website at bondinfo.org.